I didn't really want to go to the party. All of Stephanie's friends were there, and I didn't like any of them. Some guy who used to be in her old company was back in town. Apparently, he was pretty popular among his peers, and they threw a big party to welcome him back. Gigi insisted that we should go. Stephanie, or Gigi as I called her, and I had been married for 8 years. We met at one of the parties. Some of the girls in the group I was socializing with went to Catholic school. This brought them into contact with girls who were, shall we say, better. Or in other words, Daddy has lots of money, so I'm a snooty little shit. At least that's how I perceived them. My dad made a living by working hard, and I did the same. No damn silver spoons in my life. Anyway, one night our group, or gang, whatever you prefer to call us, was invited to a party at a big house on Common Street. Okay, someone from our group was invited, but as far as we were concerned, invite one. Get all. Well, as I suspected, the party was full of Hooray Henrys and the like. So no big deal, but the beer was free, so the evening didn't go too badly. Around midnight, I was trying to find a place to take a piss and found a young woman sitting on a wall in the garden crying, being a gentleman and not giving up hope for a chance. I approached and asked if I could help. She replied that she didn't need any help. She told me to back off. But I don't give up that easily and pretended to be upset with the way she was talking to me. I offered to go knock his lights out. She asked whose lights I was going to punch out, and I told her, "The guy who made a beautiful young lady cry." She looked up at me and laughed. "He's going to kill you," she said. "In that case, I'll die a happy man knowing I protected the lady," I replied. To make a long story short, 20 minutes later, I was giving her a ride home. She went by the unlikely nickname Stephanie Grenville Gordini. Her father was a company director who drove a Rolls, and her mother was a real stuck-up cow. Needless to say, I wasn't exactly sought after, but Steph and I seemed to hit it off. Stephanie was about my height, 5 feet 7 inches, slender with small breasts, but with a face to die for. I was really drawn to her, even though she was completely out of my league. Stephanie is not a name I would wish on anyone, so she became a Gigi for me. If you're old enough, you might remember one movie where the heroine was called Gigi. Either way, the nickname suited me, and I always used it. Gigi never made a comment, although my relatives straight up freak out about it. Back to my story. Before we realized it, Gigi and I started liking each other. It was like we were hand in hand. We went everywhere together and soon moved on to real hardcore sex. It was 3 years before we were able to bond in marriage, as we had to wait until she was 21, and you can guess why. We fell deeply in love, moved into a small apartment, and for the next few years all things belonged to Rose. Through blood, sweat, and tears, we saved enough money to buy ourselves a small semi-detached house. Gigi's parents had plenty of money, but they never helped us. In their eyes, I wasn't good enough for Stephanie, so we didn't get any support or help from them. We were just about to think about starting a family when that damn party swooped in. Christine, one of our old friends, came over one day and said there was going to be a big party because Craig Bannock was back in town and Craig insisted that Stephanie be invited. I could see that GH was excited to hear this news. I had never heard of this Bannock before, but GH's reaction to his name gave me an uneasy feeling in my stomach. A few days later, I ran into Tony, Christine's husband, at the pub. When I mentioned the party, he was surprised that GH and I were going there. I pressed him on it, and I got the feeling he said something he later regretted. But after a little coaxing and a few more beers, he gave in. He told me that Craig was the leader of the pack in this company, and that Stephanie and Craig had been together for a long time, even before she went out with me. Rumor had it that this whole company they were hanging out with was getting a little wild at some of the parties. I remember some of the girls in my friend group calling their parties orgies. But Gigi never hinted that anything like that could happen to me. In fact, she didn't talk much at all about her teenage years before she met me. After talking to Tony, I told Gigi that I didn't want to go to that party. Gigi got angry with me and we ended up having a fight. The first real fight in our marriage. The only way I could calm her down was to tell her I would go, since she threatened to go without me. When we got there, I was like a fish out of water. The guy I mistook for Bannock immediately came over and kissed Stephanie, completely ignoring me. He dragged Gigi to the dance floor, and she went with him without looking back at me. Now I was truly pissed off. Tony and Christine came over and kept me company while I watched GH and Bannock. After about half an hour, GH came back to me and asked me to dance a slow number with her. Once we were on the floor, I told her I wasn't happy, and if she didn't stop playing along with Bannock, we were going home. Gigi replied that I was being silly. Craig was just an old friend, and I shouldn't be jealous. When I insisted that she stay away from him, she got really mad at me and left the dance floor to go and sit with Christine. I went and joined them, but the atmosphere could have been cut with a knife. Gigi had a lot more to drink than usual, and frankly, I was already regretting letting her come alone. But I had a feeling that this guy from Bannock had plans for my wife for the evening that would redefine my whole life. Sure enough, he walked over and, ignoring me again, asked her to dance. Craig Bannock was a big guy, maybe over 6 feet. I think he thought I was no match for him, simply because he had 5 or 6 inches on me. But he was hurrah, Henry. And I was a street kid. And where I grew up, you had to know how to keep your cool and no Marquis of Queensberry nonsense. I was surprised when Gigi told him he should ask her husband if he could dance with her. He turned to me and asked me in a very condescending manner. The look that Gigi gave me made it clear that I agreed, and they returned to the parquet. I could see his hands in all the places they shouldn't have been, but I was powerless to do anything about it without making a scene, and that would have pissed Gigi off for sure. After the dance, GH came back and danced the next dance with me, though we hardly spoke. While we were dancing, I kept my eyes on Bannock. He seemed to be going around talking to all his girlfriends. But what confused me was that every guy he talked to would cast a quick glance at Gigi and I. Bannock always had his back to me when he spoke. I'm not stupid. I've seen this scenario 100 times before. I just needed to figure out what the jerk was up to. I doubted he was thinking about the old-fashioned scuffle that his maneuvers usually ended with. After the GH and I sat down at the table again, his plan became clear. Some guy I didn't know came over to talk to GH, who introduced him to me. The guy brought drinks for both of us, but upon tasting the pint of beer he brought me, I realized it was spiked. I didn't get off the ship yesterday, so that was Bannock's plan. I wondered if Gigi's drink had been spiked as well, but figured she must be fully awake when he got into her pants. Now I had to be craftier. I couldn't drink the fucking Mickeys, so I needed to let it go, and I didn't want Craig to know I'd figured him out. I also needed to know if the GH knew what was going on. Was she aware of Craig's plan to get me drunk so they could meet? The first drink I swapped with Tony while he and Christine were dancing. The next one I discreetly poured into a nearby plant. The third one in the bathroom. And so it went on and on. These prats kept bringing me spiked drinks, and I kept throwing them away. I pretended to drink them and was a little insecure on my feet. I must have been holding up pretty well, because the GH told me that I should hold off on the drinking for a while. Now I had to figure out, was she covering up or was she really worried? Around 11, I decided that a drunken stupor would obviate the need to drink any further. We moved to the long couch, and I laid down and pretended to fall asleep. On one side of me sat GH. On the other side sat Tony and Christina. Shortly after he thought I had fallen asleep, Bannock came in. I watched his arrival through half-closed eyes. He led GH to the floor, and they danced together. I watched as he groped me a few times and was surprised and pleased to see Gigi push his hands away. I probably could have trusted her, but she had a lot to drink. Soon after that, they stopped playing records and some joker started playing the piano. Almost everyone huddled around him and started singing rugby songs. I doubt any of these guys had ever been near a rugby field in their lives. As I recall, the ones I knew were wimps of the first magnitude. The only thing that got them through was their parents' money. "That's where things get out of hand," I heard Christina say to Tony. The girls are about to have their breasts exposed. Maybe we should go home, Tony replied. I don't think I like orgies. We can't. What about Stephanie and John? John is in no condition to understand what's going on. If we go, Craig will make love to Stephanie in front of everyone. He's done it before. Shit, you've got to be kidding me. No, I'm not. He stripped almost all the girls one night, then he plopped Steph on a table and slept with her in front of everyone. Then he let his friend do the same. But the third time it didn't work out. What do you mean the third time? You'll see. When the slutty girls start taking their clothes off, he'll ask one of them to do him a sex favor. I bet it'll be Stephanie, if it weren't for John and us being here. He might try to do it with her anyway. She's had a lot to drink and John is out. Oh God, Christine, what the hell are we going to do if he does? I haven't the faintest idea. I wish John hadn't gotten so drunk. He would have stopped it all. They fell silent as Craig's voice was heard starting to chant. Get them out. Get them out. Everyone joined in, and a large woman with rather large breasts began to remove her blouse and bra. In a few moments, she was dancing. Everyone applauded, and then the chanting began again, until another girl stripped down to her waist. After 5 minutes, almost all the girls had taken off their tops and were dancing, showing off their assets. GH had moved away a bit, but seemed to be watching with interest. Suddenly the chanting changed to, "Take 'em off!" and the large girl who had been the first to display her breasts stripped down all the way. Soon the other girls followed suit. The big girl was hugging some guy, who I figured was her husband or boyfriend, since they had been together most of the evening. Bannock said something to her, but I couldn't make out exactly what because of the noise. She looked at her man, and he nodded at her. Then she walked over to Bannock and knelt down in front of him. The chanting had pretty much stopped by now. As the girl continued to enjoy herself, Bannock turned to the GG. Come on, Steph. Let's see your beautiful breasts, shall we? All attention now turned to GG. She looked unsure of what she was going to do and looked back at the three of us on the couch. Don't be a stupid bitch, Christine said, but I don't know if GH heard her, as the chanting of "Get 'em out" started again. GG looked uncertain for about a minute, and then suddenly found herself naked to the waist and started dancing. The chanting changed again to "Take them down." She stopped dancing and stood looking at me for a while. Then she apparently made a decision. The room became very quiet, everyone watching GG take off her skirt and pants. I was beginning to think they were all waiting for Stephanie to undress. Then Bannock said to her in a very commanding tone, "Come here, my little slut. You're much better at this than Jean." GG slowly started to move towards him. "Shit, we gotta do something," said Tony. Then he and Christine stood up and Christine called out to GG, "Stephanie, no!" GG turned to look at Christine and Tony, but saw me standing next to them looking as sober as a judge, and a look of horror appeared on her face. Now I had several options. I could have walked over and knocked Bannock, which was my preferred option. But I had to scrap that idea, since he was surrounded by his friends, and I'd probably get kicked in the head. I could have gotten Stephanie out of there, which I suppose a lot of people would have done, or I could have just walked away and left her there. I chose the latter option. I figured she had just stripped naked at this Pratt guy's whim and was just about to do him a sex favor. Dump the bitch and get a divorce was the only sensible solution. I turned and walked out, and Tony rushed after me. "Wait, John, you can't leave Stephanie here with these assholes," he said. "If she wants to entertain them all, she can." "I don't care anymore," I replied. I got in my car, but those assholes had their ears so perked up parking their fucking cars that it took me a while to get mine out without doing any damage. I was about to drive off when GH, accompanied by Bannock, approached the car. "John, wait, please wait for me," said GG. She was still trying to button her blouse. Bannock said something like, "Let go, fool, you know you like me better." While he was saying this, Bannock made a big strategic mistake. He got too close to my car, and his friends, probably because they were dressed or undressed, stayed in the house. I got out of the car and told him what I thought of him. With his size, he seemed to think he was a winner, and he made another mistake by getting too close and kind of leaning into me. I think he was going to say something else, but he didn't have time. I didn't even bother hitting him. A classic headbutt did the trick. I heard and felt his nose break, and he went down like a log. 2 swift kicks to the reproductive section, and I was satisfied with my efforts. Well, I don't think she's going to enjoy the feel of your body for a while, I said. Stephanie leaned over, looking at him as I climbed into the car and drove off. She was yelling something, but I couldn't hear her over the noise of the engine. Strangely, Bannock's friends didn't come to his aid. They just stood there and oohed and ahed. Personally, I thought he held them all in fear. Perhaps it was fear that made them follow his perverted whims. Now he was lying on the ground squirming in agony, and he had been laid there by a guy much smaller than himself. I drove home very cautiously as I drank more alcohol than was prudent while driving. There was no breathalyzer to worry about back then, though. After arriving home, I went to the bedroom and started packing. GH had let me down big time. I wasn't going to stay with a woman who would cheat on me. I figured there would be a veritable feast of sex as long as I didn't interfere with it. I put 2 boxes in the car and was just getting the 3rd out of the bedroom when I heard a car pull up to the house. Looking out the window, I saw Stephanie, Christine, and Tony getting out of it. I was glad Christine was driving because Tony had at least one of the fizzy drinks meant for me. GH was standing at the foot of the stairs as I walked down them. "Please, John, you have to let me explain everything." Damn it, I thought. How the hell does she think she can explain her behavior today? I didn't care if she was a stupid little slut before I met her, but stripping naked in front of all those assholes, there's no explaining that. I just stared at her. She had the sense to shut up and step aside so I could get through and out the door. But once I was outside, Tony wasn't so kind. "Stay where you are, John," he said. "Now you know I'm not what that girl was. I've fought both with you and against you in the past. But now, I hope you consider me a friend. You're going to have to listen to what Stephanie has to say, or you'll regret it in the end. So I intend to make you listen." "Tony, I'm sorry, but you drank at least one of the fizzy drinks that were intended for me tonight. I don't want to hurt you, but I'll do it." No, please don't start fighting." Christina stepped between us. "John, please, 5 minutes is all we're asking for." Tony was a good guy, and I knew he could hold his own even if he had a little to drink. Honestly, I don't know if I could have asked him out or not. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. "Okay, 5 minutes, but it should be good." I put my briefcase down and we walked back into the house, where I made myself comfortable in the chair in the living room. Christina led GG into the room. GH was crying, and the defiance she had displayed earlier was gone. When everyone was seated, Christine turned to GG and said, "Well, come on, girl, you got a chance. Don't blow it, damn it." GG looked at me. "Sorry, I should have told you." She tossed the envelope on the table. "I was hoping I could get these from him so you wouldn't even know they existed." I picked up the envelope and looked inside. Inside were a number of negatives measuring 2 1/4 squares. I pulled one out and held it up to the light. It showed a picture of a girl in a classic pose with 2 guys. I didn't need to ask, I already knew who the girl was. He promised he'd give them to me if I came to the party. I knew he had them in his pocket. He showed me the envelope, but I don't think he had any intention of giving them. When Jean pulled down his pants, the envelope was dangling in his pocket. I saw my chance, and from that moment I sprang into action. I thought you were already out of it and wouldn't realize what I was doing. I just needed to get close enough to him that he wouldn't realize what I was up to. "Please, John, try to understand. I didn't want you to know they existed. I didn't want you to think you married a dirty little slut." As GH spoke, I looked over the negatives. "I should have told you. I know that now. But I never would have thought you could handle him like that. You shocked everyone there. They were all really scared of him. I think they're all scared of you now. When you left, Paul is the guy Craig asked to take the pictures in the first place. He came over and helped me get them from Craig. That's exactly what I tried to do when you left. Paul told Craig that if he even thought about trying to bring you in for setting him up, he would tell the police that Craig was trying to blackmail me. Paul gave me all the negatives he had before we got married. But then he told me that Craig took some of them. I don't think Paul or any of them will be afraid of Craig now. Now I was at a loss. What the hell could I have told her? I rose slowly from my seat and walked out of the room. All three of them followed me. Outside, I picked up the briefcase I had left by the car, walked over to the trunk and opened it. Then I looked at Tony. "Help me carry these into the house, will you?" Gigi ran up and put her arms around my neck. "I love you," she said. "Next time, damn it, tell me when you have a problem." "I will, sweetheart. I promise."